Thank you.
So Mika, let's start with you. So how did you start building your Instagram and social media accounts, and what was your intention behind it?
Oh, so I started back in 2010. I was a struggling student. You know, I was just figuring out what I wanted to do in life, and I was like, going online, researching fashion topics, and then I fell into my first fashion blog. That was Chiara Mupanduki, the blonde salad, if you guys know her.
Who's doing so well now.
Exactly. So she was my first inspiration. I thought it was really interesting to just get a different perspective of street style through real women, which
Absolutely.
are all in different shapes, all different colors. So I thought it was super inspiring to see people actually putting their lives out for other people to kind of look at. So for me, it was something super interesting just in comparison to just normal fashion on television or just in magazines.
It's far more relatable.
Exactly.
Right? So in comparison to traditional marketing, i.e. TV and magazines, how do you think social media has changed the advertising world?
I think advertising is just so interesting nowadays because you can now actually just target what you want. You can target the perfect influencer for your brand. Absolutely. And I feel brands and also creators need to educate themselves with just what the product is, because you want to really stand behind what you advertise. You just don't want to be holding a product in the camera and just saying, you know, I like this product. So I like to build long-term strategic partnerships with brands where I feel they can benefit me as well as I can benefit them, and just kind of have the best view for the brands and partners.
Absolutely. Or, you know, just even explaining your demographic to the brand and making sure that all of those things align.
Yes,
right?
And I also think it's very important that you can actually see the numbers, you can see people actually
100%.
interacting with you, asking about the products, and you just have like more of a engagement with the followers other than like just normal digital media or newspapers. You get good feedback, so to say.
Exactly, because they're having a conversation with you pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So what do you feel are the key factors of becoming a successful influencer?
Oh God. So when I started, there was like no platform. You could not educate yourself on how to become a fashion blogger, how to become a YouTuber. You kind of just had to learn from scratch. So we, as a sense, like if you've been doing it for a longer amount of time, I feel we had the time to actually evolve, rather than when you start right now, you'd be like just jumping into the pool. So I feel over the years, I got to just really kind of learn what I wanted to do, what I wanted to focus on, which channels I found were interesting to me, like Instagram, YouTube, and blogging.
Right.
So I could just kind of build my own brand how I wanted to, and I feel like it just took time to actually build it all up. And
establish it.
Exactly.
What about in terms of things like, you know, photographing content and having a schedule and sticking to it?
It's so difficult because, as Shay said before, people don't really see it as work. Like I know my friends, they came to me, they're like, you're a blogger, like, okay, like what are you doing on the internet? You know, I come from a time, I didn't grow up with social media, so like I'm like an 80s kid. So for me, it was like so interesting to see how far you can actually reach with social media. Like what it's become today is so interesting. Like we never had that back then. So like for me also, when I started, I did not get anything. I did a lot of free work for brands because I was so excited. I don't know if some bloggers, you know, when you start out, you're so excited when you get your first product. You're like, oh my God.
That a brand has noticed you.
And you're so enthusiastic and you're like, oh my God, this brand actually wants to work together with me. And over the years, we've kind of established like a good partnership agreement with a lot of brands where you'd be like, I felt for myself, I had to put much more money into becoming a blogger than what I got back at first. So I had to invest.
Could you explain that a little bit? So
Yes.
what would you invest in?
Equipment. First and foremost, equipment. I had to have a computer where I could cut videos on. I had to have a good camera, which took, now smartphones are pretty good at it.
Yeah.
But back then you had to have like a DSLR. And I kind of took it from the bigger bloggers. I was like, okay, maybe I want this camera. I want to, you know, have this editing software, blogging, hosting. There are so many boring things which actually go into like creating a channel. Exactly.
Everything.
So I feel there's a lot of work which goes into it. It's not just like standing in front of a camera and just smiling. I feel like if you're, you know, if you do, like I like to do everything from scratch. Like I'm like the control person. Like I want to edit my pictures. I never want anyone to like take that away from me. So I really like to just stand behind the products, and I feel, equipment is also really,
Absolutely.
important.
So how do you collaborate and handle partnerships, and what do you feel like you've learned over the years as being an influencer?
I feel, seriously, a lot of brands just kind of look at numbers. When I started, you know, when I started to get my first collaborations, I had like maybe 30K. Now I'm at close to 1 million. I've got 900,000.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So I feel at the starting, people were so interested just in working with me, and for me it was like brands just came to each other random. They didn't really fit to me, and I had to learn to say no to partnerships which just didn't look good for me, or I really didn't stand behind it. And sometimes it's hard. Like when you're self-employed, you need to pay your rent and you need to do stuff.
Exactly. So
I
it's
really
like a realistic balance as long as the
yeah, and like I do it full time. I've been doing it for about 3 years full time. But before, I found it really hard to say no because in the end, in the real world, you know, you have your checks and you have to do stuff. But I feel if you really believe and you work hard on it, then you evolve. So
and
to
eventually
say.
you get to choose who you want to work
so
with.
So now you can just, you know, be more free and not really just like cramped to like start working with brands just because.
And take on anything.
Exactly.
Definitely. So where do you see your journey heading and evolving in 2018?
Yeah,
apart from the million mark.
Exactly. We'll hopefully crack that one soon. But I feel I want to educate people in becoming bloggers. Like I've noticed the shift from people who are like, you have a blog, you have a YouTube, and now everyone's coming to me, they're like, oh my God, what's the best hosting? So I think it's so interesting that people are now just interested in creating their own stories. And they come to me and say, you know, like, how can I get started? What do I need to do? And I would tell them you need a lot of time because you can't, like a lot of people, I was going to say, like you can't really, if you want to fully dedicated to do it, you have to literally, it's a 24/7 job. Like I'm like the worst person. Like it's so hard to turn off because, you know, you have your phone in your hand all the time and you just, it's not even like conscious. You just go for your phone, you check your Instagram, just like any normal person. But it's hard to turn off, and sometimes, you know, I have to lecture myself. I try to, like, also when I go on holidays, if it's not like something for work, I try to like really just stay away from my phone and just kind of enjoy the quality time. Yeah.
Do you ever have like times in the day where you're like, okay, it's an hour, I'm not going to touch my phone or my laptop?
Oh, it's so hard because everything just comes. You know, I check emails. It's like everything is on my phone. So I try to be like a strategic person and just kind of, you know, just kind of set time in the day just to do certain stuff, but I'm kind of all over the place. Like I don't have that much structure in my life, unfortunately. I would love to, but
that's fine.
That's not.
Well, thank you, Emeka.
Thank you very much.
That was fantastic.
Thanks.
So, Patrick, let's move on to you. We would love to know what makes a good Instagram story.
Instagram story, because, well, it comes down to storytelling. And it's the best tool you have with the new algorithm to gain visibility and gain followers. So instead of looking at the lower number, I look at ways to increase the number. And a story is divided into 3 parts. I studied English literature. I'm French, Canadian, so I don't speak English very well. I don't speak French very well. But there are 3 parts to any story. You have the setup, you have the conflict, and you have the resolution. Nobody wants to watch conflict, but there's 3 parts, and I look at it as a burger, whereas there's the meat, which is what the story is about, and that's got to be clear, and you got the buns in between. So you have your introduction to the story, you have the meat of your story that should be good and juicy, and you also have the end to your story where you say bye to everybody.
You're good. You're good. Yeah. So how do you maintain, you know, the engagement rate of an Instagram story?
You got to make it interesting to make people watch it from beginning to the end. And one of the things I do is I tend to add the blooper reel at the end of the story, but I want to...
Fun tactic.
People who follow my accounts, we share the same story, sometimes to 40 different accounts. I own a lot of accounts. I have staff, but it's a lot of work. But to keep people engaged to the story, you got to give them value. You got to give them something they either haven't seen before, something they want to see, and it's got to be pertinent to your account.
Can you give an example of one of the accounts and what kind of content you would push out on that particular?
On At Paris, I do have an example, and I have a video I think I want to show.
Okay.
It's snow. It's not something we see very often here, I guess. But I'll let the video do the work.
And speak for itself. Yeah. Can we get the video, please?
Oh, formatted.
Do I have snow in my face? Can we change the format, please?
Una, dos, tres.
They stretched it. more than 200 accounts, but I won't do video games. It's only €4 for crepe Nutella banana at the Trocadero. Now, Diana is one of my employees, and she kept throwing snowballs at me. Her aim is really bad, but she kept hitting me, not the phone, and I wanted her to do it.
No, we didn't get the camera.
For a transition that you saw in the
I swear to God, I'm not doing it.
These are the bloopers that people watch to catch it.
Please put it like. What's my aim plan? I have no idea.
Una, dos, tres. Dos, tres. Una, dos, tres. Wait.
Sácalo ya, vamos. Entrápalo. Una.
Dos, tres.
So you provide value, thank you, by showing your city. Unfortunately, I wanted it to show on portrait because I shoot everything portrait, but you get the idea.
So after watching that, do you feel like special effects really add to the Instagram story and maintaining that engagement?
You want to be as authentic as possible, and one of the key to success on Instagram was not so much the device that people use. It was the people who started using smartphone to make photos. And I use smartphone to film everything, because one thing I want to touch on is the tools I use to make the stories. Special effects, why add more work to your daily workload? I work 7 days a week. I do all my edits on smartphone. I use Splice. It's a free app from GoPro. It's great. And I film with 2 phones. If we're going to touch this.
Oh, wow.
iPhone, it doesn't matter which one they are, but iPhone 10, I got the other iPhone as a wide-angle lens on it. And I'm always cutting between the 2. Special effects, I'll use hyperlapse on Instagram. I don't even know if it's still available on the store. And I'll use slow-mo from the camera. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, cool.
That's awesome.
So what value do you feel Instagram story brings to the brands that you work with?
Well, this is the new word of mouth. I know brands want to have the link to their website or their Instagram, and I don't want to link to the Instagram.
So you
I
won't
want
do
it
a
with
swipe up?
I will do the
You'll do
swipe
swipe
up,
up?
but the value is not there. The value is in bringing paying customers. One of the things I do, I have a social media marketing business, and we manage client accounts. And one of my clients has a coffee shop in Paris, and he tells me, no more stories. I don't want to have 100 people lining up for brunch on a Saturday. This has an immediate impact. The story you make, the videos you share. This is YouTube 2008, but it reaches people faster, quicker, and the impact is immediate.
Agreed. So what is your recommended Instagram story length, and how many story panels should somebody post?
2 minutes and 30 seconds is optimal. 1 minute is great. So you need to be really ruthless in editing, and this one I was not, the video I showed. You want to do 1 minute because you want to put stories into your post, but 2 minutes and 30 seconds is great. 10 to 12 story panels, even less is better, because who here has gone to somebody they follow and they see like a bunch of little dots and you go like, fuck this shit. I'm not gonna watch this. I'm gonna go to the next one. Sorry, I swear a lot. But it's a question of you want to keep it short, you want to keep it entertaining, and 1 minute to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. But this said, my most watched story was 15 minutes long on Instagram. So the bunch of little dots, but it was, Eiffel Tower was in it, 166,000, that was when it was only up for 24 hours, 166,000 people saw the first panel, 22% watch until the end. That's close to 38,000 people. That's a lot of people that have 15 minutes, and I'm getting their attention for 15 minutes. That's long on Instagram, but everything is film landscape, and they're watching it like this. But if it's entertaining, if it's good, you provide value, people will watch it, talk in your stories.
So you mentioned that you feel like it's going to be another form of YouTube. What do you think is the future of Instagram stories?
We have insight now. I think there's more coming down the road, but you can leave your story up for longer than 24 hours.
In terms of the highlight, when you add it to
when
the highlight?
you add it to your timeline. And some people don't want to add the highlights, but one of the things I notice, I have 5.5 million followers on all my accounts. I gain 189 to 200,000 new followers every month when people are struggling to gain followers. Highlights and story do help. It just adds value to your Instagram account. And I want to touch something here. I don't post anything as I go throughout the day. I treat the story as I treat a media post. It's latergram. Okay. Actually take the time to work it, cut it, put it together, and then I share it in one go, so that makes it more like a YouTube video. And people are more interested to just, okay, I'll watch it because I know there's a story to it. There's something happening.
Got it, and there's more production value. Very insightful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Garrett, we're on to you.
All right.
So, what was the main intention of you creating your Instagram? You know, you're one of the first families to have this effect on the world of traveling around with your babies and your wife. So what brought that on?
We started our Instagram account right after I had left my job. I was working at Snapchat.
Oh, wow, okay.
Behind a desk, and it was my first time at like a desk job, and it just wasn't the lifestyle I wanted. So I left work, and we didn't know what we wanted to do next in life, and my wife kind of came up with the idea, well, let's take a few months off, go travel the world, and while we're traveling, you can kind of decide what you want the next step in your business life, career life to be. And I'm entrepreneurial enough that when she came up with that idea, I was like, all right, let's travel. While we travel, I'm going to create an Instagram account and a YouTube channel, and that'll just kind of be my side venture while we travel. Well, then that side venture became very big and popular, and it became my full-time venture.
So do you feel like Snapchat had any influence in your next steps?
It did quite a bit, both for good and for bad. I think each social media platform has its like strengths and its weaknesses. And one of the weaknesses I saw while I was working at Snapchat wasn't necessarily Snapchat's fault, but just kind of how young people were using social media.
Right.
Because I would see what people were doing and what people were posting, how they were spending their lives, and it was just a whole bunch of wasteful, boring nothing. And it made me sad, and I decided, I don't want that for me, I don't want that for my kids. And so that's why when we created our social media, it wasn't about staying inside and doing nothing. It was the opposite. It was travel the world, get outside, and do everything.
Yeah, carpe diem, seize the day, or the year, right?
For sure.
Okay, so influencing people has, you know, become in part responsibility for a lot of influencers. How do you, you know, maintain that and, you know, stay as a role model and voice your opinion in the right way and maintain your voice?
That's really important to us. If you were to follow our social media closely, we never ever give advice. Like, we won't even tell people you should travel here or this should be on your bucket list. Like, we try to just live and lead by example. And so if you follow us closely, you will hopefully see, like, we spend time, like quality time together as a family. I think it's really unique and rare these days to have a father. I have 3 kids, and to spend 24/7 with their kids. I taught my kids how to swim. We do just day in and day out, like, we're together on this journey together as a family. And so, yeah, although we're not trying to like preach or give advice to our followers,
Right.
we definitely hope that they learn from our example, and most importantly, like, our values.
Incredible. So with having small children, you know, on your YouTube and your Instagram, do you ever sort of stop and think about whether they want to be present on that, or if they're ever going to ask questions about it in the future?
Yeah, for sure. We have 3 kids, a 5-year-old girl, 3-year-old boy, and a newborn. And we launched an Instagram account for the newborn, and before he was even born, he had 150,000 followers.
That's wild.
And it was, my wife messaged me when we launched it, and she's like, how many followers do you think he'll get this first day? She guessed 2,400, I guessed 7,100, and he got the 1,000 or 150,000, so we're both way off. But yeah, so there's this weird thing where our kids have these really large accounts. We just use them. We don't brand or do any paid deals
Any
on the
sponsored
kids'
content.
accounts. It's just like a daily journal. I take one picture of each of them once a day. We loved watching them grow up. Those accounts are treasures to us. But I don't know. I think worst case scenario, if they don't want to be a part of it, then they'll definitely have the right to just shut it down. Best case scenario, I mean, it could definitely fund their college, be their job when they grow up. At least that opportunity's there if they want it.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. So how do you set your partnerships, especially knowing that you're going all over the world? Is it difficult to maintain those brand relationships, or is it fairly straightforward?
No, I think that's the beauty of being online and having those relationships. Especially, one of the favorite things of what we do is because we're traveling all around the world, there's such a large variety to the brands that we work with. Sometimes we're at a nice fancy resort on an island,
Right.
and then sometimes we're at a home rental working with Airbnb, different airlines all around the world. So there's just so much variety to what we're able to do because of our traveling lifestyle.
Cool. So do you have any new projects or any new destinations that you could share with us?
So, I mean, our most recent project has been birthing a new baby. But now that the baby
How was
is
that?
here.
Was your wife super comfortable with doing that? I mean.
Yeah, no, everything. So we put everything on hold. We went off social media for a while, focused on just spending time together as a family. But baby boy came, he's healthy, my wife is healthy, so now that everything's good, we're gonna hit the road again. We have no home, we're just in a rental home to have the baby, and then we'll start traveling full time again. And the plan for 2018 is to try to find a place to call home. So the plan is we're gonna continue to visit a new country once every week, visit about 25 countries so far already on our list for this year. And we'll either find a place to live, or from each country we'll pick out decor and inspiration, and all of that inspiration will then go into our hopefully future home this year.
Cool. So how is it filming with little children? How do you maintain your schedule as well as obviously caring for them and making sure everything's
the content side and the story side, that part's easy because my kids are super cute.
Yeah, that'll
so they make my job easy as far as creating the content. The editing is the tough part. Because I do all the photography, video, and editing myself, we post once a week on Sundays. And if I'm in a new country, I don't want to stay inside and edit. I want to experience that country. So I do the same thing every week where I just play, and then Saturday I realize I have 24 hours before the new video is due, and I just stay awake until I finish it. And it's terrible, and then I finish the video and I love it, and then I do it all again the next week.
That's cool. So how do you find the right time to know when to share content with your audience?
As far as what time we post, in the
pretty
day?
much.
So because our audience is so worldwide, I have to know weird stats. I do know that at 9 a.m. Eastern time, 9 a.m. in New York is when the most humans around the world are awake at the same time. So we post then.
Okay.
And then we post 12 hours later so that anyone who happened to be asleep during that time, like Australia and Japan usually, then they get our second post of the day 12 hours later.
Cool.
So a lot of thought goes into it.
Love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.